Welcome to Webinar 4, where we talk all things specially designed instruction, classroom setup, and curriculum for students with significant cognitive disabilities in kindergarten through 6th grade. With me are my colleagues in the Office of Special Education, Ginger Kessler and Bobby Richardson.
At the State Department, we have 6 strategic goals that we plan and work around in all of our efforts. Each of these goals not only guide our work, but they serve as a framework for the intentional supports and resources that we provide educators at the local level. We emphasize the board's goals in every presentation because it is critical that our entire public education system is aiming at the same targets. Every presentation we make includes the Mississippi Department of Education's vision and mission. We believe it is important to keep front and center our vision for creating a world-class educational system that equips every student with the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce. Our mission at the State Department of Education is to provide leadership for the development of policy and accountability systems so that all of our students are prepared to compete in a global community.
Our goal for this episode in our webinar series is to examine specially designed instruction and then really look at our classrooms. Are we setting them up and providing instruction that is best for our students? Let's start by exploring specially designed instruction. We might also call it SDI because y'all know in special education we love our acronyms.
SDI is one of the foundational concepts of special education. The Mississippi Department of Special Education partnered with Maryland Friend and Bree Genovese to help create this document. It is currently on the special education page on the MDE website.
Let's dive in and look at the dimensions of SDI for students with significant cognitive disabilities. And y'all say this as we get started. All of this information can be found in our specially designed instruction guidance document that I was just talking about. So we have to look at 3 things. We really need to look at the content, methodology, and delivery for what that SDI needs to look like. For our content area, we need to make sure that they have general curriculum access. We need to make sure that all of their instruction is aligned to that alternate standard curriculum. We need to look at making sure that it's aligned to the appropriate grade level. And we really, y'all, if you don't hear anything else, hear this last bullet. We need to make sure that the IEP goals that we develop support access to curriculum and do support our social, functional, and behavioral skills. That middle section, methodology, we need to make sure, as we have talked at length through this webinar series, about specific or explicit instruction. We need to make sure it's systematic. We're looking at task analysis and chaining so that we make sure our students can transfer those skills into different areas. We need to look at consistent time delays, prompting hierarchies, and simultaneous prompting. That last one, y'all, we have to look at delivery. We need to know who's supposed to be delivering instruction, where they're supposed to be delivering that instruction, and when. And all of those have to be tailored to fit the needs of our kids. So building on that, we need to make sure that we're looking at what does SDI include? What is it, y'all? Like if you had to give somebody a definition, what is SDI? For our students with significant cognitive disabilities, it's access to their Mississippi alternate standards at their grade level. Specially designed instruction is a service. It's not a place. It's a service, just like special education is. It's what a teacher does. It's the instruction that they provide that's specifically tailored to meet the needs of that student. It's teaching those specific skills a student does not have in order to access and make progress towards their annual goals. So y'all think about it. This is where we're providing instruction in those deficit areas. It's specific to the student, just like everything under the sun of special education is. It's unique instruction developed from their standards-based IEP goals, and it's instruction that enables a student to make progress.
Research tells us that classroom setup is an important part of how students access instruction.
Now pause the video and read this statement. In other words, it just says that our students function better when everything is in its place and everything has a place.
Okay, y'all, I want you to take a second and I want you to think about a special education classroom. We're going to hope it's not yours, but I want you to think about a special education classroom that you have been in where that teacher has kept everything she's ever used or everything that her students have ever had since 1980. You can see the boxes piled up, the scrap paper in a corner, and I need y'all to think about what that would look like to a student who has trouble with visual processing. We want to make sure that's not our classroom. As Denise just said, we want to make sure that we provide a classroom that has everything in its place and everything has a place. We want to make sure that it's not overwhelming for our students. It's not distracting from our instruction. So we want to make sure our classrooms are organized and ready to provide the best setting for our students.
Now that you've cleaned your room and organized it, let's talk about implementing instruction.
Let's look at some things that our instruction should include. We need to make sure that we're continually offering practice for skills that our students have mastered, especially if they're still in their deficit area. So y'all think about it in our terms. As adults, there are things that we do all the time that we can do without even thinking about them. We always say that, oh, I could do that with my eyes closed. But then there are things that we don't do very often that we have to really think about or really put forth some effort into doing. With our students with significant cognitive disabilities, there's no difference. If they're not given the opportunity to practice their skills, even once they've mastered them, they will lose that area of instruction. Now, we also need to look at how we're providing instruction and how we're connecting that instruction to real-world application and really looking at those functional skills or how is what we're teaching going to help them in the long run. We've talked about in several of our episodes of this webinar series that our students with disabilities have trouble generalizing skills. So we need to make sure that as we're providing that instruction, we're connecting it to those real-world opportunities and so that it'll stick long-term. Something else, and it's not a bullet on the slide, but it needs to be said. We need to make sure that everything we do with instruction is looking towards the future. Our students with significant cognitive disabilities have the ability to have long-term futures and set some goals and work towards achieving those goals of independence. So as we're teaching and we're providing instruction, we need to keep that in mind and really plan for their futures. So y'all, there's different ways that we can provide instruction. As teachers, we all know that we can teach whole group, we can teach one-on-one, and we can provide small group instruction. When we look at whole group, we need to make sure, like we talked about earlier, that our classroom and our environment is free from distraction. We can look at assigned seating so that students have an area that they can go to. We need to make sure that we're providing consistent routine. Y'all have heard me, if you've ever been to one of my professional developments, you hear me talk about routine and scheduling and how it helps our children thrive. We make sure we're incorporating those visual expectations like Denise has talked about, and we need to make sure that what we're doing in our instruction is engaging for our students. When we look at one-on-one instruction, we need to make sure it's age appropriate. I know that they may seem like babies, but our fifth graders don't always want to hear about the baby books. They want to hear about things that are age appropriate and interesting to them. On that same note, y'all, we need to make sure we're providing things that pique their interest and their preferences. We need to make sure that we're speaking loud and clearly. We don't want to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher up there. They won't get anything. We need to make sure that we're providing some multi-sensory integration. We need to be enthusiastic, and we have to make sure that we're providing that scaffolded level of prompting. For our small group instruction, We need to make sure that our students are mastering their skills. It's sometimes hard if you have a group of 6 or 5 children to be able to make sure that everybody has mastered what you're teaching. We need to make sure if we are going to do that, that the skills have previously been introduced. We don't want to be teaching new skills in small group. We need to make sure that we're limiting their frustration. Y'all know that if you get frustrated, and we've done it several times through this webinar series as we're recording it, y'all, you get frustrated and you get tongue-tied. We need to make sure that we're providing those good opportunities for practice, but we're making sure that our students aren't becoming frustrated with what they're doing. And again, y'all, we need to make sure it's age appropriate. If we're teaching 5th graders, we don't need to be looking at kindergarten or 1st grade work. Okay, y'all, let's look at curriculum. The Mississippi Department of Education does not endorse, require, or recommend specific products for any district. Districts are free to choose which is best for them. Now, y'all know we have to say that. That's our disclaimer. Let me say this. We have some that we're aware of. We have an infographic that Denise has developed that really looks at what a curriculum should include. And if you'll contact us, y'all, we will gladly send that to y'all. But we as a department don't specifically recommend, endorse any specific curriculum. Those are all up to district decision.
Regardless of what curriculum your district chooses, or you may not even have a curriculum for students with significant cognitive disabilities. But you do have the standards, and those are required on the IEP. If you have checked the student has SCD criteria eligibility, then you also check the students will be instructed on the alternate standards. So if you're not familiar with where those are, you will go to the mdek12.org website. You will then go to the special education page, and on the right, you will click information and publications. If you scroll down middle ways on that page, you will see the Mississippi Alternate Academic Achievement Standards. If you pause the video to go find those standards, you may see something that looks like this, or go ahead and pause now and try to find them. If you look on the left-hand side, you will see that those are general education kindergarten standards in the area of reading informational text. If you will look on the right-hand side column, you will see an A in front of that. That means alternate. So that will let you know if you are looking at a general education standard or an alternate standard. Pause the video and look at the differences in the two standards. You can see that they have been scaffolded back, but they still have that intent. These standards have a higher expectation for our students because we want high expectations for our students, as well as they bridge that between the general education and the special education.
As a helpmate for our standards, we have teacher resource guides. As Denise just gave you guys the pathway to our alternate standards, if you'll scroll right past those, you'll see the teacher resource guides for those alternate standards. Y'all, what our teacher resource guides do are help our teachers customize content to fit each student's needs. It includes suggested activities, instructional strategies, it gives you sample lesson plans, and offers you guys resources for how you can implement those alternate standards. It includes adaptations for students with a variety or varying range of those disabilities within your classroom.
Now I want you to pause the video and I want you to find a teacher resource guide under the content and grade level that you teach. This one is kindergarten. And remember what I said, the A is for alternate. Now the L in this situation is life skills. And the K stands for kindergarten. So if you can see, they've taken a standard, they've developed a performance objective, and then they've taken that performance objective and you can see they've gone from most complex to least complex. So they've scaffolded this standard for you. And it helps you see the intent of the standard. It also has real-world connections. What can you use real-world connections-wise to teach that standard in your classroom? It's giving you a vocabulary, and it's giving you live resources. This is just a living document. It is live resources. You can click on those, and they will automatically go to them.
As we go through this webinar series, y'all don't forget you can send us your questions and we'll address them in episode 8. Our email for you to submit those questions is spedta@mdek12.org. We'd like to thank you guys for joining us today, and we hope you've enjoyed this episode of our SCD webinar series. If the Office of Professional Development or MDE's Office of Special Education could be of any assistance, we encourage you to reach out. We're here to help. Make sure you're on the lookout for all the rest of our episodes, and we look forward to the rest of the series with y'all.